So let's start with the relationship with China, because you also have a key role in Georgia in the One Belt, One Road initiative. But of course, we've got the backdrop of a US-China trade war. How does that impact your trade relationship with China?
You see, first of all, you mentioned, the Georgia is on the crossroads between Europe and Asia, and so it means that we have to deal with all our trade partners, and of course we have to perform our function, our natural role as a bridge between Europe and Asia. And as you mentioned, we are part of One Belt, One Road initiative since we are historically on the historical Silk Road route geographically, and of course with all our economic policy, with very open economic policy, we're trying not just physically connect the markets, but also to serve as a bridge between the countries. And in this particular case, like you rightly mentioned, so we have free trade agreement with China, but at the same time we have the free trade agreement with the European Union signed in frames of association agreement. And we also have the free trade regime both with Turkey, with CIS country, with EFTA countries, with about 19 countries, and this provides also us with opportunity to provide free trade atmosphere to all the countries which are willing to trade with each other. So in the era of trade wars, actually, the Georgia is very nice place where there is no trade wars and where is opportunities for all the countries to bridge and to find and to meet each other.
Yeah, when you mentioned the various free trade pacts you have, I noted that the US was absent in what you just said. Obviously, there is the prospect of that, but as your rapprochement with China increases, are you concerned that it might harm your relationship with the US?
Not really, because what we have in US with US, it's not just trade relations with the US, but it's a very strong strategic partnership.
Right.
And as you mentioned, so we also have very strong ewro-Atlantic aspirations, and it's a part of our national policy as well. So when we're talking with when we're talking about China, so we're talking about one of the biggest, largest markets, and of course all of the countries of the regions are have the desire to participate in this trade relations. But of course, when we're talking about our political aspirations, when we're talking about our reform agenda, of course, it's looking for the European and Euro-Atlantic every year. So that's much we don't think that we will affect it anyhow with this big trade relations. So we are in the region, which is very diverse. As I already mentioned, Georgia is very open, very business friendly, very investor friendly, and we think that we are not only providing the opportunity for these big markets to connect to each other logistically, but also to meet in Georgia, maybe.
Yes. Now, with Europe, in terms of the association agreement you have with the EU and the prospects of perhaps becoming a full member, is that complicated at all by Brexit? Does it put a delay on those conversations? How does Brexit fit into that scenario?
Not really, actually. So we have almost all our largest trade partners are just countries which are in European Union. Actually, the European Union in general is our largest trade partner. The Brexit, so it's of course unfortunate for everyone, but we already signed the agreement with UK, which covers all the issues which are part of our association agenda as well. So we already have managed to to manage all those issues with UK as well.
Yes.
Not to be affected by the Brexit.
Oh, right. Okay. Now let's turn to some of your domestic issues as well, because of course that's something that will no doubt concern investors. I mean, you've had some violent clashes. The ruling party saying it won't try to change the 2020 voting system. Meanwhile, the US and the EU have urged calm and dialogue over the failure of the electoral reforms. I mean, this might give an impression to international investors of instability in Georgia. So what would be your message over that? And what will you do if the protests continue to escalate?
Yeah, so the truth is, first of all, that we don't have this, so the pictures that we are looking on our TV screens, there's not actually corresponds what's happening in Georgia. So because we are talking about very minor local protests because of the unfortunate failure of some faster moves for the proportional electoral system. But of course, it's not a failure to implement the electoral system, since we have very free and transparent election consistently, and it's internationally proven. So the main issue is, and main message from Georgia is that we have the peace and stability in Georgia. So any type of clashes that you might see are really of very local nature. And in fact, what we have in Georgia currently, it's 5% GDP growth, which is highest GDP growth in the region. We still have the controlled inflation. We have very good prospects for the investment outlook. And just recently, Standard & Poor have upgraded the Georgia's rating from BB minus to BB, and we had the same investor outlooks from Fitch agency and so on. So the prospects are very good in Georgia. So there is no instability.
Right.
There is very open economies, and all arrangements, all policies which are done in Georgia are focused on the investors and focused on this on Georgia serving as a bridge and place where investors meet.
Will you give in to the protesters' demands, though, if the protests get worse? We are talking about thousands of people at the moment.
We are, of course, the dialogue is the only way how we can work with the opposition, with the civil services, civil sector as well. So the dialogue is the only forms that we are following, and of course we do not expect any protests to have some bigger scale, of course. So everything is peaceful and stable in Georgia, and we are open to investors, and we don't feel any effect of these actions to our economy.